So good afternoon. So I'm Royce Aguilar. I'm the equity research analyst of First Metro Securities. So thank you. I just opened my video a bit now so you can see me. Okay. So good afternoon. This is our market wrap up for the month of March. Okay. So we have our usual outline, but I have two special topics for you later. Actually, sakto, we have students here. We'll talk about a bit of what's happening today in the US in terms of the yield curve, right? But let's talk about the general outline first. What happened in the month of March? We're done with the first quarter of the year, guys. So it's pretty quick. What to watch out for in the month of April, right? Which is tomorrow. Stock picks and traders playbook highlights. Of course, most of you or some of you may know already our long-term stock picks, and I will reiterate it later. But of course, to add further value to this presentation, I added a couple of traders playbook picks for appreciation. Yeah. So what happened in the month of March is actually we are just down by nearly 1.5%. No, in the month of March, we closed at 7,203 earlier. And year-to-date, the PSI is still up by 1.1%. So to discuss what dragged the market, it's still the higher commodity prices, guys. Hindi lang oil ang tumataas right now. Even commodity prices, the likes of nickel, palladium, even wheat, diba, silver, all went up. And of course, it's good for some investors of commodities. But if you're actually a company, and then these are your raw materials, diba? Kunyari wheat, diba? Raw materials, coal. It actually lessens your profit because it's your cost. Assuming you have the same sales, it increases your cost and your profit will be lower. So that's what's dragging the market. And then this market-specific event, FTSE Asia Pacific Semi-Annual Index Review, where SM got removed surprisingly. Usually kasi, no, just to provide some guidance, usually when a certain stock gets removed from an index, and for example, I'm a global fund manager, I track the same index. I track FTSE, for example, FTSE, and then SM got removed. Since I'm tracking the index and SM got removed, I have to sell SM, not necessarily because of a change in fundamentals, but because I'm tracking the index where SM is not already part of, diba? So that if you take a look sa market, medyo dragging pa rin siya a bit. Because of the huge volume that SM has. Okay, and then if you take a look at what supported the market, several reasons: signing of the amendments to the Public Service Act into law, strong earnings by several index names, and central bank's decision to keep rates steady. Right? If a central bank communicates well what they want to do, that makes it easier for the market to move. Okay, mas predictable, better for the market. Uncertainty, not good for the market. So central bank has been steady in terms of what they will do, hence the market is supportive of it. So the first special topic that we will discuss today is the effect of the Public Service Act, diba? So let's discuss first, ano ba nangyari? So si President Duterte signed into law allowing full foreign ownership of telcos, airlines, and railways, okay? So this is the Public Service Act. We're seeing mixed reactions from this kasi diba inisip nila, binibenta natin yung bansa natin to foreigners. But you know, let's dissect it a bit, right? Let's dissect it a bit. So specifically, the law would allow for full foreign ownership of businesses in select industries, telcos, airlines, railways. Some sectors, however, will remain restricted to full foreign equity, such as public utility vehicles, water, electricity, petroleum pipelines, and seaports. Okay. So according to Duterte, the amendments will support the country in leading the path towards economic recovery. Okay, and we actually have a report on this one. Okay, we will tackle that in a bit. This is actually already it. So one benefit is that liberalization always brings about an increase in investments. So in the past, ownership limitations have been cited as among major setbacks that has lowered the country's competitiveness in attracting FDI, that's foreign direct investment inflows. So it is therefore a consensus view that lifting of foreign ownership restrictions is a game changer that will lead to huge investments in the country. So it will be felt in the coming administrations, diba? So it will be remembered na, okay, napasa ito March 2022, right? So it's a long-term thing. So now, the question is, what are the implications to Philippine telcos? Diba? Kasi ito yung sector na heavily affected in a positive way ng Public Service Act. Okay? So if you take a look at the left side of the slide, for those listening sa podcast, the left side dissected further what was part of the Public Service Act, diba? So let's talk about it. So there are industries na exempted from this, like, such as such as yung mga yun nga, water, electricity, diba? So meron rin naman limitations. Not all sectors can be 100% owned. Okay, and then there's one provision here that the president may also suspend transactions involving critical infrastructure that would threaten national security. So for example, if the government thinks na medyo harmful yung certain country na to, tapos gusto mag-invest, diba? Pwede siya isuspend ni president. So may mga gano'n rin naman na limitations. Okay, so the question here is, what are the implications of this one on Philippine telcos? Okay, we mentioned liberalization brings about an increase in investments and therefore competition, right? So actually, this is good for consumers as well. But if we take a look at the telco itself, okay, yung risk of competition is there. But let's talk about what's the actual situation of the telco industry, di ba? Number one, it's already saturated. Yung wireless mobile segment. Number two, lack of available mobile frequency spectrum band. Number three, the considerable time it will take a new entrant to achieve a competitive business scale. In our view, the path with the lowest barrier to entry is for fresh foreign investments in the sector to form partnerships and or joint ventures with existing players. So this is how it will actually benefit the telcos. Okay, so definitely the telcos will hear this out, right? In terms of, okay, this can increase my competitiveness. They know that they have a lot to improve in terms of their service, so maybe a foreigner can help them, right? So in the short term, outside the potential secular impact of the bill, there are two existing players that could enjoy share price appreciation in the next 2 to 3 months. So specifically GlobeTel, since it raises their free float adjustment market cap weights on foreign benchmark indices such as the MSCI. So just to explain, the MSCI is another benchmark index, right? So the one criteria there is free float adjustment, which can increase their weight to MSCI. So if their weight increases in the next rebalancing, the fund managers who are tracking MSCI have to buy more of GlobeTel. Kasi as they're tracking the index, they have to track the weight. Given that yung foreign ownership increases, and that's one criteria of MSCI, tataas si GlobeTel. Hence, there's some share price upside for these names, right? For Converge, once pumasok siya ng MSCI, which is expected to be in May, Converge can benefit as well. So you see there on the slide are specific recommendations, diba? We have a buy call on PLDT, Converge, right? As you may see in our website. Si Globe, we have a hold call. We have a target price of 2.8. If you think that's enough upside for you, it's okay to buy. But we have a priority on PLDT and Converge. Actually, for PLDT, we have a target price now of 2,150. We lowered it a bit, but nevertheless, it's still a buy for us. Okay? So now, the second special topic that we would like to discuss is the inversion of the yield curve. Okay, so we are seeing in the US some inversion sa yield curve. Okay, so I'd just like to explain a bit because probably you might hear this more often in the coming weeks or months, right? So just to explain a bit, this is how a normal yield curve looks like, diba? So for those listening to our podcast, yung normal yield curve pataas siya na onte, right? But the inverted yield curve pababa. So just to explain a bit, or downward sloping, I think that's the best way to describe inverted yield curve. Downward sloping, or yung negatively slope. Yung normal yield curve is positively slope. Okay. So just to explain a bit, under normal conditions, diba, interest rates go up with an increase in the time of maturity. Yun yung normal yield curve. So this results in a positive slope. If interest rates and time to maturity are negatively correlated, then the resulting inverted yield curve will show a negative slope. So what does this mean? Historically, the yield curve assumes a negative slope in the lead up, or meaning, pag nagkaroon ng inverted yield curve, meaning there's a probable recession and economic slowdown. Yung pinaka tinitignan na spread are the 10-year and the 2-year bond. Okay, so if the 10-2 spread falls below zero, meaning the yield curve is inverted or negatively sloped. An inversion of the yield curve signals that investors expect longer-term rates to be below near-term rates. So meaning, mas mataas yung yield ng short-term kaysa sa long-term, right? Meaning they're not positive in the long-term, meaning they expect a potential economic downturn. Okay? Yun po siya. So I would like to emphasize though, no, na once the yield curve inverts, it doesn't mean or at least historically, the recession agad-agad yan. Not necessarily. So for the US, if we take a look at this slide, the first part here, inversion date. For example, let's take a look na lang, yung pre-COVID, guys. This is a good example. Pre-COVID, inversion date, yung pinakababa, August 26, 2019. Guys, wala pang signs of COVID yan. Wala. Right? But if you take a look at the S&P 500, that's the top 500 companies in the US. Nag-peak siya Feb 19, 2020, meaning from August 26, 2019 to Feb 19, 2020, the market went up 19% specifically, right? But the recession began March 2020. That's when the market began to drop, right? So may delay, may lag, right? So of course, you're seeing the inversion of the yield curve now, right? But doesn't mean there will be a recession agad-agad. But meaning the inversion of the yield curve gives us something to think about, that it is a reliable indicator, but it's not immediate. There's a bit of a lag. So moving forward, what could be the result? Yung Russia-Ukraine ba pwede lumala? Right? Will there be something worse? Will inflation hit us really bad na magkaka-recession? Yun yung mga kailangan natin isipin. Does it mean you must have 100% cash right now? But meaning you should watch more of the news, market, or our reports. Yun siya. Okay? So now, taking a look at the chart, right? The market did close above 7.2 today. Today, March 31. For those listening to the podcast, I'm reporting as March 31, on March 31. But I'm still putting it as a resistance, right? Resistance kasi I think we must give it at least until a day to confirm that it actually went above 7.2, because I'm not convinced of the volume, right? If you take a look at the PSA recently, I recognize that it has rebounded, right? But I'm not convinced of the volume yet. Okay, so we must keep watchful. Looking at price action alone, last week the PSA managed to end above 7,000. Today it managed to end above 7.2. But the volume is not there. Net foreign buying, hindi pa masyado. Puro net foreign selling pa. So the trading plan is to continue to hold, but you must be cautious, because the market can still go downwards. Definitely. Looking at price action, we're not out of the woods. That's the key takeaway. But doesn't mean you have to be 100% cash. Time in the market is better than timing the market. Okay, time in the market is better than timing the market. That's the key takeaway here. We're just providing guidance on price action, but nevertheless, exposure in equities is always good. Just a matter of allocation lang yan. Kung yung market is not, if the economy or the companies are not so positive, you have to lower your allocation. Doesn't mean 100% cash. Okay. There's always a bull market somewhere. I think that's what I want to share with you guys. There's always a bull market somewhere. The bull market right now is in commodities. Not good for consumers, right? Kasi tumataas yung presyo, tumataas yung gasolinan. But if you're an investor, of course, you have to spot where you can invest. And right now, it's commodities. That's where the super cycle is right now. Okay? So what to watch out for in the month of April? Will reproduction number continue? We're still talking about COVID here, guys. Reproduction number continue to subside despite the surge in other countries. Diba? Yung mga ibang countries, tumataas yung cases. So we are pretty fortunate na hindi pa napupunta sa atin. Probably because baka tayo nauna, right? Economic data, inflation, April 5th. Unemployment rate 7, or if it says April 18. Jobs report tomorrow for US, April 1. Inflation, April 12. GDP, April 28. Manufacturing data tomorrow. And then we have a couple of central bank meetings for Japan on 28th and EU on the 14th. Campaign season, again, we mentioned this last month, na yung campaign season is a much in terms of policies that are leaders will implement. Okay? Must watch yan. Ano ba yung policies? Especially yung mga likely winners. Ano ba yung policies nila? Because that will be watched by the market. Okay? Ukraine-Russia developments and its impact on commodity prices, global inflation. Okay? Inflation is sky high prior to the Ukraine-Russia issue. Now, meron pang Ukraine-Russia. Si Ukraine-Russia, provider of, diba? ng wheat, tapos si Russia exports oil. Heavy impact on commodity prices. China and North Korea actions, may times na medyo may mga narinig din tayo news, so I put it here just in case things get worse. So again, news is something to watch out for, but please stay out of fake news. Please rely on reliable sources. You can tell me na reliable sources is subjective, but I disagree kasi madali lang naman mapinpoint ano ba yung mga reliable sources, di ba? So please please watch for reliable sources, news-based. And then first quarter Philippine and US corporate earnings, magsisimula na po yan next month, okay? You will see a bit of full year 2021 earnings in the coming days, but in terms of first quarter earnings, it will already start in the month of April, mostly in May. Okay. So in terms of our stock, I guess for you, for our avid listeners, yung mga lagi nakikinig, no, you guys know this. Okay. So, but I will reiterate it. I will still reiterate it for those who are first time. Okay. So for Jollibee, it's one of our top picks sa consumer sector. Target price is 289. The interesting thing here is the business has turned around. Right? The key takeaway is the business turned around, nagre-reopen yung Philippine economy. Not only the Philippine economy, but global economy where Jollibee has exposure, di ba? Meron siya exposure sa Europe, US. So it's good. Kasi before, when it was pandemic, medyo the playing field was level, di ba? Level yung playing field. Kasi if you're gonna order from the app, Grab pa yan, Food Panda, or kahit anong app, you can choose from a lot of restaurants. But since we're reopening already, the company or the restaurants with the most branches benefits. So that's where Jollibee is ahead of. So target price for Jollibee is 289. For FB, struggling in terms of price action, right? But if you take a look at the fundamentals, if you're a long-term investor, best to stick with the fundamentals, and the fundamentals is still okay, is still strong for FB, okay? Especially yung nagre-reopen tayo, you guys, if you take a look at social media, di ba? Saan napupunta? Yung mga friends natin, napupunta sila sa beach, Batangas, Boracay, La Union, umiinom for adults. And keep in mind that 90% of the market share is, as a segment, is San Miguel in terms of beer. So that's 9 out of 10, you're probably drinking a San Miguel beer, okay? So that's for FB. For RHI, it's as malls reopen, bottom line, RHI will benefit. So that's the key takeaway here. Our target price for RHI is 83 pesos. Again, the price action somewhat sluggish, but the fundamentals remain strong. Okay, so it's just be patient. Okay, the market kasi is still facing some headwinds regarding inflation, but if you take a look at the reopening, we are already reopening, and RHI would definitely benefit from that. SM, definitely. SM is one of our top picks, actually our top pick, because it has large exposure across sectors where we see recovery to be robust. Retail, real estate, banks, number one si SM, right? And again, it got removed from the FTSE index, which actually resulted in the stock trading at a steep discount, which we should take advantage of. Kasi, okay, na-remove siya sa index, but the fundamentals have not changed, right? We're reopening, they're aggressive on expansion. We should take advantage of it. And our target price is 1,267. And for the property Ayala Land, our target price is 49. We lowered it from 52, take into account the full year earnings. Nevertheless, the upside is still there. It is a leader in the Philippine residential market and is the second largest mall developer. Okay, as we see more remittances come in, as more people come back to work, not only here but our mga kababayan in other countries, diba? It benefits the property which they can invest in, diba? Kasi si Ayala naman, di naman siya premium lang, meron siya mga, it caters to all segments, meron siya mga brand per segment. And again, second largest mall developer, it's there, the mall reopening. Okay, so Ayala Land 49. Same case for RLC, diba? Coming back ng malls, diba, property. Tapos yung office, yeah, we're hearing a bit about yun yung mga news ngayon, papasok ba yung BPO or not. But eventually they will, right? Eventually they will. Not taking a stance here, but eventually there's really room to go back to the office, especially when security is at risk, right? Nevertheless, the upside is there. Target price is 30 pesos. SM Prime, same case. Right, mall beneficiary, property rebound, office stability. If you take a look at the second point here for SM, we drilled it down. rental reprieve to normalize faster than expected. Meaning kasi diba yung during the pandemic, these companies were kind enough to waive rent or at least lessen yung rent kasi diba COVID. But right now, nagno-normalize na yung rents, which benefits the landlord, which is SMPH. For banks, we're positive on banks. Bottom line, we're positive on banks. BPI 111 pesos. If you take a look at what management is thinking, we kept on mentioning what we think of the banks. Now it's time to mention what the management actually thinks of their business. So specifically, they expect loan growth to reach 8 to 10% this year, which is high, coming from 5% last year, which already beat our target, diba? So some segments are already at pre-pandemic levels, so we can only expect better things from the banks. So BPI specified it, diba? So for BDO, target price is 183. Among our coverage universe, BDO is the biggest beneficiary of economic reopening. So we see expansion in companies set interest margins. We're seeing potential rate hikes in the coming in the latter part of the year. Again, that benefits banks. If you take a look at sa US, yung mga bank stocks doon, prior pa lang sa pag-rate hike doon sila umakyat, right? It's easy to pinpoint na okay, bibili ka pag umakyat yung rate, pag tumaas yung rates. But again, the stock market is forward-looking. If investors, especially the more savvy ones, really see na mag-rate hike na si BSP, bibilin na nila yung banks. So we're not yet late. Okay, you're seeing some banks already rally, diba? You see Metrobank, right? BDO have rebounded well. So you're not yet late. For Security Bank, target price 150. Upside will come from rebound in retail banking where there are higher margins, higher fees generation. So Metrobank, we're not covering Metrobank since we're part of the group, but we have a research partner who covers Metrobank, and their target price is 68. It's also a buy. Okay, so these are our top picks. You can take a screenshot. For those listening to our podcast, I will mention the upside of these names of our top picks. So for SM, 39%, Ayala Land 39%, SMPH 26%, RLC 46%, GFC 28%, FB 86%, RHI 49%, BDO 37%, BPI 11%, SecB 37%. So those are the upside as of earlier, March 31. So this is our model part. This shows you the performance of our picks. Diba? Transparent kami. Transparent. Diba? So if you take a look at the market cap weighted return, it's 2.3%. Meaning, i-base mo yung, for example, if you have a portfolio, i-base mo yung weight sa market cap ng companies. So for example, SMPH having the highest market cap, sila yung may highest part ng portfolio mo. But assuming you want to make it simple, diba? You want to buy all our picks equal amount ng money, you're down by 0.5%. PSEI up by 1.1%. So si market cap return outperforming a bit, mainly because of the strength and resilience of the bigger market cap names such as SMPH, BDO. Yeah. So Traders Playbook highlights, just to mention a couple of Traders Playbook that we have for our clients here. I hope you benefited from some of our picks. So we just released earlier si Nickel Asia. We actually recommended Nickel Asia several times, and simula yung 5 pesos at least for the past 12 months we've been recommending Nickel Asia. Recently at 5 pesos it went up, right? Tapos we recommended it again Feb, buy on pullback, nag-pullback siya, umakyat ulit. Now we are recommending again Nickel Asia. The fundamentals remain robust, right? The fundamentals remain robust. Electric vehicles, tapos yung nickel prices can remain elevated given the proposal of the Indonesian government to impose a progressive levy on the export of nickel, pig iron, and ferronickel, diba? So that supports nickel prices, and the fundamentals remain healthy nga kasi nga the demand for electric vehicles, so they use nickel for the lithium battery. Okay, so that's one. Another is Cebu Land Masters. This is more of a play on dividends, no? It's a different take if you're a long-term investor, if you're a trader. Nevertheless, for Cebu Land Masters, the fundamentals remain robust also. It's undervalued. It's aggressively expanding outside of Luzon kasi nga yung niche niya is Visayas, Mindanao, where it's where there's a huge room for growth, diba? So our specific strategy can be found in our website. Okay, so Cebu Land Masters Nickel for this particular presentation. If you want to look at our specific buying points, please take a look at our website. So this is the hit ratio. Last month, nasa 70% siya. But of course, the market went down. Some of our picks hit their cut loss levels. But what we are proud of, if you take a look at below, diba? So si PSCI is up by 1.1%, but our playbook is up by nearly 7%. Diba? So outperforming. Risk management is key, guys. Risk management is key. Diba? So inuuna namin yung risk before profits, at least for the years payable, because we want to focus on preservation of wealth. Okay, so icing on the cake na you're profiting. Okay, so we also have podcasts, diba? So we have a podcast. We released one earlier this month with interview with founder and CEO of Solar Philippines, si Leandro Leviste. We have more podcast episodes coming for you guys. We're excited to release more content for you. Okay, so now let's welcome all of your questions. I will give you 2 minutes to answer your questions. Okay, so thank you. So type in your questions in the next 2 minutes. So thank you. Alright, so let's try to answer your questions. Sige, buksan ko na yung video ko, guys. Okay. I'll first start sa Q&A, right? So please, yung mga questions first, start tayo sa Q&A. Okay. So question, do you think meron pang susunod na IPO this April given na may SROC UBP this April? Yeah, may mga, I'm not sure if sa April mismo, no, but there are a lot of companies that are planning to list. So one is si Aguilar REIT. I think si North Star, 'di ba? Si North Star yung provider ng meat to SM. Meron ring SM REIT, si SM Prime REIT. There's also Balay ni Frutas. Yun yung mga nag-disclose, right? Those are the companies that I know of, but I'm pretty sure there are more. So if you notice, no, the past couple of years, past 3 years, medyo exciting yung IPO scene here in the Philippines. So we're pretty happy about it, and I think this is a good exercise for us to really pinpoint ano yung bibili natin. Hindi dapat natin bilhin lahat, no? We have to pinpoint which ones to buy. Actually, if you take a look at may mga literary, may mga books sinasabi don't buy at IPO kasi pretty volatile yan, no? But again, if you're a long-term investor, it's a different approach. It's a different approach. Usually pag fundamentals, long-term ka talaga. What I can assure you, what I agree is dapat alam mo muna yung IPO price, kasi yung IPO price will determine ano na ba yung valuations ng stock at that price. So hindi ka lang bibili dahil sa company, paano kung mahal siya, diba? So you have to take into consideration of the price also. Next question is, what are the FMS top 10 picks for long-term highest paying div stocks? So medyo madaming top 10 picks, no, but I'll mention a few. It's not necessarily FMS, it's not necessarily the company's picks, but I'll mention some highest paid dividend stocks no, we cover and we like. So diba si PLDT, no, we like PLDT. Si Globe, we have a hold call on Globe, but it provides stable dividends. Yung mga playbook picks namin, diba, like si Semerara, Aboitiz Power, they provide the healthy dividends. If you take a look at si Metrobank, surprisingly, part siya ng dividend yield index. So, one thing to consider also. So, those are some names na you can consider. The nice thing about it is that the dividend paying names now also has share price appreciation upside. Share price upside, diba? So, please take a look at our stock scheme report. We provide there mga, if you want dividend yielding names, we are meron doon naka-screen ano yung mga likely magbibigay ng dividends. So yeah, we have lots of reports to cater to your request. This is a good question, no? Given that SGP and Monde are trading at below their IPO prices, is it a buy recommendation given also their growth potential versus target values? It's a good question. For SGP, again, we don't have an official call for SGP, but I think it can also be part of the previous question na baka magiging consistent high-paying dividend stock si SGP. And SGP, keep in mind, si SGP indirectly owns NGCP. NGCP, one of the more stable companies that you will see. Okay? Ano siya, goes in line with the economy. Transmission. Diba? Yung cycle ng energy, ano yan dapat before it goes sa power generation company, dadaan yan sa dapat generation, transmission, distribution, diba? So yun yung process. So si NGCP like dominates the transmission side. So it's a name to consider, definitely. For Monday, yeah, we understand. We actually may buy call kami dyan eh, di ba? But right now we are not overly or aggressively recommending it to clients. Mainly because we know it will get hit by high inflation, high commodity prices for Monday. So we're not aggressively recommending it even despite that below IPO price. If you want an exposure, very small allocation lang. We still focus on the opening names, specifically property banks na hindi masyado affected ng the Ukraine-Russia issue. So there. Another question is, when will PSI hit 8,000? What catalyst can propel the PSI out of the consolidation phase? Good question. Again, right now, we have lots of risk. Lots of risk right now. Ukraine-Russia effect, inflation, because tumataas yung commodity prices, could lead to recession, global recession. Diba? That's the risk, that's the worst case scenario. Right? But catalyst, ano ba yung catalyst? Number one, matapos na yung Ukraine-Russia issue, mag-moderate yung commodity prices, meaning bababa, and it will be good for the economy, right? Number two, healthy, fair election, diba? Better yet, yung manalo, malinaw yung platforms. Okay? Kasi if you recall before no 2016, landslide win, Duterte, malinaw, build, infrastructure, long-term growth, economy, market, like that. Kaya umakyat yung market and after the win. Okay? So that's the scenario we want rin. Okay? Yeah, I think that's the near-term catalyst. Kasi right now, I would have said reopening. But nagre-reopen na tayo eh. But the market, if wala yung Ukraine-Russia issue, we'll probably hit 7.5, at least 7.5 already. Okay, so it's not reopening anymore. Kasi reopening na nga nagpapa-akit sa market right now eh, above 7,000. So we have to remove all the risk. We have to wait for the risk to be over para mag 8,000. Does it mean you don't buy it? But that doesn't mean you have to be aggressive right now. Dapat may exposure ka sa market but don't be over aggressive. Dapat may cash ka, like around 10 to 25% cash to save for a rainy day just in case the market goes down. But you must have a bit of exposure. Okay. Question. Okay. Can we still see a positive upside for AC and XOR or ASEN? For it's a different approach, no? Kasi for ASEN, we have to admit that for ASEN, it's relatively expensive, but definitely the growth prospects are there. But what we have to ask ourselves is how much is priced in, right? Right now, kasi it's ASEN is still relatively expensive, but doesn't mean you should not have ASEN. It's just that amongst the power names like Aboitiz Power, Semirara, ASEN, si ASEN siguro lower allocation, and then once price come back at attractive levels, you can increase your exposure. Kasi definitely renewables is the future. It's actually the present and the future, right? And ASEN is well positioned not only in the local but international. It's exposed sa Australia, Vietnam, India, diba? So kina-capture niya yung mga developing markets. So well positioned siya dun, okay? So ASEN is well positioned to really make more consistent profits. For ASEN XOR kasi, the good thing about it is si ASEN, I think it's transferring some assets to ASEX, making it a bit more less speculative, right? So yeah, so for ASEX, we have to evaluate it a bit, no? The good thing about it is it's yung exploration side niya is still something to watch out for. Na-approve siya earlier this month, but yeah. So something to watch out for ASEX. Definitely may upside pa siya, but it's hard to quantify. For ASEN, it's just that may upside pa siya, but some of those or most of those have been priced in already. Good question, no? Next question, are the stock picks also applicable for long-term investors or just for traders? Are you talking about the top 10 picks or the traders playbook? If you're talking about the traders playbook picks, mostly for traders rin siya, but if you take a look at the fundamental aspects or the explanation in the said report, you can take it as a long-term point of view, but just keep in mind it's not our long-term pick. Okay, kasi our long-term picks are the ones mentioned kanina, yung top 10, diba? So yun yung pang long-term investors. Yeah. Which REIT companies do you think will fulfill their dividend projections and which ones appear to encounter challenges in meeting their dividend projections? Yeah, it's a good question, but and you know, bottom line, we want to stick with the bigger companies kasi the bigger companies are more likely to meet their dividend projections. So actually, you know, we prefer more the likes of MREIT, RCR80, yun siya. It's a good question. Can you share more color on why yours has rebounded recently given inflation concerns haven't subsided and they have less ability to pass on cost to consumers unlike retailers like Pure Gold? Yeah, it's a good question. But you know, if you ask me, it's more of just an oversold bounce. There, you're right. The risks are still there. Inflation concerns are still there, but it's just an oversold bounce. Kasi if you're a bit tech savvy, no, technical analysis savvy, usually the stocks don't continually go down unless probably sira na yung company or something, right? But for URC naman, the company is robust enough, but indeed it's facing concerns kaya siya bumababa, but doesn't mean it will go straight downhill, diba? If you take a look at downtrend, pababa, akit ng onte, bababa. So that could be what will happen to URC na baka mag-downtrend siya. Right? Actually, right now, downtrend na siya. But I'm not going to be overly optimistic of what the rebound right now. It's just an oversold bounce if you ask me. We're looking at the company closely in terms of valuation wise, but the fundamentals, it will still face headwinds regarding concerns inflation. Good question, no? Sir, pag nagbigay ba ng 20% stock dividend si video, babagsak din ba price ng 20% pag nabigay na yung dividend? Yeah, I think what we have to be clear here is, yeah, babagsak yung price ng 20%, but does it mean, for example, if may hawak kang video ngayon, babagsak yung hawak mo ng 20%? Not necessarily. The price will just adjust given that it gave 20% stock dividend. It happened before. It happened to, diba, nagbigay ng stock dividend si Macro Asia before, si Metrobank before, diba, nagbigay mga stock dividend. Nag-adjust lang yung price nila, but does it mean nag-iba yung value? Di nag-iiba yung market cap. So we just have to be clear on that. But to be clear with your question, the price will adjust given that it will give 20% stock div, but the value does not change. The market cap will not change. Yun. Yan, sige. Sabi nila balikan daw yung stock picks. I'll just flash it sa screen. There, okay. So for SEC, no, again, it's not long-term coverage of ours, but it's one of our traders' playbook picks, right? For Semerara, I expect it to make a new high, to be honest. It's just consolidating right now kasi laki na inakyat na, diba, this month. But I think it's good to buy a bit now, buy more until 30 pesos. Yeah. So Semerara, definitely, it's a company that can actually give high dividends. So, diba, usually pag nabili naman tayo sa dividends, aakyat siya on announcement date. So you can take advantage of that. STC hasn't announced yet, but I do believe it will give high dividends. Besides that, the fundamentals remain robust naman. I mean, long term, definitely yung coal mababawasan, diba? But we have to define what's long term. It could be years from now, but for now, like at present, SEC is attractive pa. Next question is, FB, does FMS have a buy call? Yeah, FB is our one of our picks in terms of, yeah, it's a good question. What is or are the issue why the stock continues to go down? I think number one is related inflation, kasi diba, besides beer, meron siyang food segment na matatamaan yun sa inflation. Besides that, I think yung public float is makes it not heavily traded. I think the float right now is 11%. Usually kasi pag ganun ng kababa yung float, it's not heavily traded, so it's easy for the stock to go down, to go up. Next question is, do you advise buying A-REITs than ALI? Not necessarily, no. Actually, what we recommend is, diba, you're seeing our long-term picks here, right? Nakikita niyo yan, diba? Yun yung top 10 long-term picks namin. One way to allocate your portfolio, assuming you're moderately aggressive, is 70 to 80% of these stocks, 10 to 20% dividend paying names. Part of the 10 to 20% dividend paying names are REITs. Tapos 10% probably short-term traders playbook picks. That could be one idea, right? So it's not one way or the other. You could actually have both. It's just that we recommend higher allocation on the opening names. Kasi the economy is reopening right now, and it's just that meron lang headwind right now on inflation, but doesn't mean that yung earnings of those will come back to pre-COVID levels. Or will does it mean the earnings will go back to COVID levels? We do believe the rebound will come. So there. And we're actually seeing it already, may rebound. Yeah. Good question, no? Sir, bakit kaya si SGP hindi nakasama sa dividend yield index ng PSCI? Kasi one criteria there is dapat consistent ka nagbibigay ng dividends for the past 3 years. Or for example, yung REITs for the past months na listed siya. For SGP siguro, it has to consistently give dividends pa in the coming quarters para siya masama. And the rebalancing naman of the dividend yield index is every Feb and August. So, let's see. Probably next year or 2 years from now masama ni si SGP. Another good question, is it good to buy GMA7? It's one of our traders playbook picks. Mataas yung binigay niyang dividends, plus it's a beneficiary of election kasi mga campaign, di ba, yung advertising. Plus, unfortunate for what happened with ABS, right? But for lack of better way to explain it, GMA7 is benefiting, from what's happening. Of course, probably they're saddened too by what's happening. But looking at earnings, you can really see the improvement. So yeah, it's a buy for GMA7. As for traders playbook picks, for short-term picks, if you want an explanation, more elaborate way for GMA7, we actually put it sa traders playbook report. Okay, so let me answer last 2 questions. Yeah, I think one question is what time na post yung traders playbook. Yeah, it doesn't have a specific time, no. Unlike our daily report, weekly report, usually before market. But traders playbook kasi sometimes I write intraday, I release intraday. So there's no specific time, but we make sure na we release 4 to 5 times a week. Yeah. Okay, last question. Yeah, it's a good question. Medyo iba, medyo global related. So tech stocks perform excellently during the past 2 years due to innovation during lockdowns. You're right on. What is the future of tech now? i.e. US ETF Nasdaq 100. I'm actually answering this kasi, diba, if you take a look at our fund smart, meron mga global funds there. So it's good for you to also consider for those who are listening. For tech stocks, definitely, at least for the US, we actually think na in terms of upside, mas mataas yung emerging markets, right? Mainly because the tech stocks, I'm not saying the tech stocks hindi na aakyat yan definitely, but if you take a look at the next 12 months, there's more upside in the emerging markets where the reopening is just beginning. Diba? Sa Philippines, in other countries, Indonesia, nag-uumpisa pa lang yung recovery, yung reopening. So that's where the upside will lie. But the future of tech, which is your question, definitely the future of tech is definitely there. The nice thing about Nasdaq 100 is nagre-rebalance rin siya, no? So the top 100 tech companies, the Nasdaq 100 will always be filled with the top 100 tech companies, and the tech will only continue to improve in the future. So it's something to put money in, right? But again, allocation perspective tayo. Emerging markets, Philippines are poised to outperform in the next 12 months. So for tech, pwede natin siya dagdagan, no? In the coming months or years, right? So, but definitely a must-have at portfolio, especially for the more aggressive ones. It's good to always diversify. We have our top 10 picks, but doesn't mean na 100% ilalagay natin dyan, right? So we must always diversify. It's just a matter of allocation, guys. Just a matter of allocation. And we recommend higher allocation to Philippine reopening companies. So property, financials, consumer discretionary. So FBRHI. So there. Thank you everyone. So for questions, please send in lang sa email namin. One of our colleagues for First Metro Sec will type in where you can send in your questions. So thank you everyone, no? Thank you for listening into another market wrap up. Please stay tuned sa mga nakamiss. Ipopost namin to sa Spotify, Apple, Google Podcasts, okay? And then we'll have more of this. We'll have more podcasts. So stay tuned for our content. We'll have more. We have other events. We have gift series. We have other seminars. So stay tuned lang sa social media accounts namin. So thank you. So this has been Royce Aguilar, Equity Research Analyst of First Metro Securities. As always, it's #YourFutureFirst. So thank you.